And turning to Zimbabwe now, the country's main opposition party, the Movement for Democratic Change, is already crying foul ahead of the country's elections. The party has alleged that police officers have not been allowed to vote secretly when completing early postal ballots. Let's get you more on this now from CGTN's Farai Mwakutuya. Farai, just 2 weeks to go, of course, before elections. Are there tensions at this point over the risk of fraud ahead of the polls?
Indeed, Lindy, a lot of tensions are simmering, and as you say, the opposition continues to point to these anomalies. One of the key areas that they've raised concerns about is the issue of the voters' roll. Now, historically, the voters' roll in Zimbabwe has been a serious area of dispute. Opposition has claimed that this is one of the tools that has been used to manipulate the vote. And so when Zimbabwe embarked on the process of coming up with a new voters' roll that was biometrically generated, there was a lot of confidence and hope that indeed this might clear up that area, but there continue to be these issues of contention, particularly because some of the independent organizations who've audited the voters' roll that's been made available by the Electoral Commission so far have picked up anomalies. They've seen duplicated names, duplicated addresses, people who are 140 years old, for instance. And so they say that those numbers of ghost voters could potentially impact the vote. The Electoral Commission, however, says that it's still in the process of cleaning up the voters' roll. What is made available is a preliminary voters' roll, and it will avail a final one. However, again, because we're just 2 weeks away from an election and that final roll isn't available yet, that is something else that is a point of contention. And so, yes, there are tensions, especially now as we head up closer and closer to that election date.
Of course, the clock is indeed ticking. At least there has been some kind of response from the Electoral Commission. Hopefully they will be able to produce that voters' roll in time. But in the meantime, have they responded to this claim from the opposition that police have not been able to vote discreetly?
Lindy, yes, there was a press conference, a joint press conference, in fact, held by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission that was also addressed by the police, where they confirmed that indeed postal voting, which is the voting for those officers who will be performing duties on election day and therefore unable to vote, that postal voting did go ahead, and the ZEC refutes the fact that it wasn't done in secret. They say that the secrecy of the ballot, that principle of the secrecy of the ballot was upheld, and indeed the process was done in the manner that it must, that those postal votes were completed and will be sent by postal delivery to the Electoral Commission to be counted along with all the other votes on election day. The opposition continues to point to the fact that they were called by police officers who were asked to vote in the presence of their superiors. So at this stage, it's a he said, she said sort of situation we have, but the Electoral Commission insists and sticks to its guns that so far everything is done. It's by the book, according to the law and according to the constitutional mandate that has been given to manage these elections.
And lastly, Farai, how has the campaign trail been progressing for both ZANU-PF and the MDC since that bomb blast in Bulawayo?
Well, Lindy, certainly on President Emmerson Mnangagwa's schedule, there was a bit of a break following that bomb blast, but he is back on the campaign trail. He's addressed a number of rallies and continues to meet different stakeholders and different groups as he builds up towards that election, albeit under very strict and more, tighter security controls. At his rallies now, the crowds are barricaded far away from the VIP area. Even the press can't get as close as as we used to the podium and the speaking areas, for instance. And so it's a lot more secure, it's a lot more tighter, but the president is back on the campaign trail. The opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa, also continues. And what's quite interesting is that he's focusing a lot of his energies on the rural areas, which were previously no-go areas for the opposition in the past. And so he's going in there. He's also calling, drumming up a lot of support. We see some significant crowds there. And so both the leading parties and leading contestants in this presidential election are calling up, are able to mobilize those numbers. And so there isn't much to tell in terms of if you look at the attendance at their rallies. But, Nelson Chamisa continues to say, look, we want real change, we want real transformation in Zimbabwe, and the opposition will deliver that. Emmerson Mnangagwa now sticking to his very often repeated Zimbabwe is open for business, saying that now is the time for economic prosperity, which he and and ZANU-PF, this new look, new dispensation will deliver, and particularly because they are re-engaging the international community. It points to the fact that over 15 billion in potential proposals, project proposals and investments has already been brought in, and so President Mnangagwa is saying, give me another mandate and I'll bring even more of that. Lindy.
Well, indeed, this is the election to watch. Thank you so much, Farai Mwakutuya, joining us there live from Harare. That election, of course, set to take place on the 30th of July.